What is happening, everybody? Welcome into today's show. We're going to talk about some of the games happening this weekend in the SEC with our buddy Lyn Scarbrough of Lindy Sports, as he does each and every week. And we'll go around the conference, get you an update on LSU's Derek Stingley. Alabama expected to be without a key linebacker this week at A&M, and much, much more. I am Chris Gordy. This is Locked On SEC.
Locked On SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And as I mentioned, I am Chris Gordy. Thanks for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Remember, Locked On SEC is free and available on all platforms, including YouTube and LockedOnSEC.com. Let's jump into it. Let's go around the conference.
Boots out to the right. Takes the handoff. What a catch!
Around the conference.
And we start in Tuscaloosa as Nick Saban talking with the media yesterday and talking about some of his key injuries to his team. And he revealed that linebacker Drew Sanders is probably going to miss this week's game at Texas A&M. Saban said Sanders had a hand injury that required surgery, and it was a little worse than they thought, so Sanders will be game to game for probably a couple of weeks. Saban also stressed that his team needs to continue to play full 60 minutes each week. What we haven't done a good job of, Saban said, is sustaining our performance throughout the game. We've given up a lot of second-half points. Yeah, you're also dominating a lot of opponents, but Nick Saban never satisfied, even when his team is kicking butt. Over at LSU, Ed Orgeron announced that Derek Stingley Jr., their stud corner, had surgery to repair a foot injury. His timetable is unknown. Stingley did tweet out that he vows to try to return this season. He's an All-America cornerback, considered to be the number one cornerback in this year's NFL draft, could be a top 5 pick. Stingley said in a statement, "I'm doing all I can to return to the field as soon as possible. I want to finish out this season with my teammates." Stingley has played in just 3 games so far this season for LSU, made 8 tackles, 2.5 tackles for a loss, and a forced fumble that led to a scoop and score by another member of the defense. Over at Georgia, Kirby Smart always looking to improve his team, and even though Georgia's defense considered probably the best in the country, Kirby said, we got to force more turnovers. So we have to tackle better, especially on the edge and in the secondary, and we have to have better gap control. Kirby, of course, is familiar with Jordan-Hare Stadium, where his team will be heading this weekend. He calls it one of the best in the country. He said it's extremely loud. Most SEC places are, but they have the incredible ability to affect the game in terms of noise and the energy they bring to it. We'll prepare the best we can for that environment. Over at Florida, Gators coach Dan Mullen talking with the media yesterday, and one of the things he talked about was his team's barrage of penalties last weekend. He said, I think obviously a lot of guys haven't played in tough road environments. It's always a challenge when you go on the road in the SEC. He said it just means more in the SEC. There you go. Good tagline. There are a lot of things that went into it the other night. We just got to coach it up and improve on it. Mullen did say one of the highlights from his loss in Lexington was how well the Gators played defensively overall. They held Kentucky to just 224 total yards in the game, including just 87 passing yards. Over in Knoxville, Tennessee Volunteers have been doing something all year, getting fast starts. They are outscoring their opponents this year by a combined 73-13 in the first quarter. Talking with the media this week, Vols head coach Josh Heupel was asked about his team's ability to start quickly. He said, when it's going good, guys are doing their jobs. That's offense and defense. That, as much as anything, plays a part in how you start or how you finish. Heupel said, in this football game coming up, the start will be important too. That, of course, their home game with South Carolina. That'll be at noon Eastern on the SEC Network on Saturday. And lastly, over at Arkansas, Sam Pittman talking about his Razorbacks, how they have bounced back from their lopsided loss over in Athens last weekend. Pittman said, I think we've been great. Practices have been really good. The team's responded really well. You have to put that game behind you. Obviously, we have a great opponent we're preparing for this week. I don't think last week's game will affect us one bit. And there you go. That is around the conference, an abbreviated version. We're going to catch up with our buddy Lyn Scarbrough coming up next. Thank you guys again for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Make sure you're subscribing and downloading us every chance you can get. We're here for you 5 days a week. All right, Lindy Sports, Lyn Scarbrough coming your way next. Need to remind you guys about our friends over at SweatBlock. It is doctor created, doctor recommended. It works for up to 7 days, and they give you a dry shirt guarantee. If SweatBlock doesn't help keep you dry, you get your money back. It's been a bestseller on Amazon for the past 10 years, over 13,000 reviews, number one in the Amazon antiperspirant category. It's basically works like this. If you have ever had one of those issues where you are pitting and your t-shirts are showing sweat stains and all that, you need to try the SweatBlock antiperspirant wipes. They're stronger, more effective than most clinical antiperspirants. You put it on at night, you go to bed, next morning you wake up, wash, go about your day without worrying about sweat, guaranteed. Get them today, 20% off at sweatblock.com. Use our promo code LOCKEDON. That's LOCKEDON. You can also find them at Amazon and on CVS. SweatBlock, sweatblock.com. Use the promo code LOCKEDON. Rolling along here, Locked On SEC, and one of our favorite guests to catch up with every week. Told him we're on the road over in Lexington, Kentucky, going to the LSU-Kentucky game this weekend. And I said, we still got to get our buddy Lyn Scarbrough on as we do every week because, it's not talking SEC football if it's not with Lyn Scarbrough of Lindy Sports. And Lyn, first off, I got to tell you, my buddy who's an Alabama fan, he has been listening to their fight song all week long after that big dominating win over Ole Miss last week. So I've had their song stuck in my head all week long. But first off, how are you, Lyn? Good to talk with you, man.
I'm doing great. When I was in law school in Alabama, I heard that song a lot. And over the course of the last 50 years, covering ball here in the state of Alabama, I've heard that song a whole lot. And the folks in College Station are going to be hearing it a good bit, I'm afraid, this weekend.
All right, well, let's start right there. Lyn, Alabama going to College Station this weekend to take on Texas A&M. All the trash talk in the offseason from Jimbo Fisher and their fans thinking they were going to take that next step this year, already with losses to Arkansas and Mississippi State, now looking like a third straight loss coming to the Tide. With them coming to town, what is it about Texas A&M? Why is Jimbo struggling to get over that hump in the SEC West in your mind?
I don't know. They've got all the resources in the world. They got what I feel is the best stadium in the conference. They've got, deeper financial pockets, I believe, than any college in the country. I think Jimbo, that's not going to sound fair, but I think he saw what was going to be happening at Florida State and that Texas A&M threw him a lifeline. They were already on the way, being more shaky. The recruiting had not been what it has been. They hadn't had a coach with a winning record since Jimbo left. He's now got exactly the same record that Kevin Sumlin had. This was pointed out to me by someone else, that this many games into the career at College Station, he and Kevin Sumlin had exactly the same record. I believe it was 29-12 or something like that. Kevin Sumlin gets fired and Jimbo gets like a $95 million, signing bonus or something. So things aren't exactly even on that. Moving to the SEC was more difficult than what they were in the Big 12. I don't think there's any question about that. They get the bad luck of moving into the most difficult division in the most difficult conference in the highest level of play. You had, of course, A&M's dropped out now, but before that, you had 8 SEC teams in the top 25, and 5 of them were in the division where A&M is, and that's a tough nut. I mean, you're playing against. I've had it in my column last week about the quote traditional powers, and when you're looking at the top 15 programs in the last 70 years of college football. I think 7 out of the top 15 were from the SEC and 4 of them from the SEC West. It's tough to, you can be pretty good and not look real good when that's what you're playing. I think this year, though, everybody's kidding around here about Lane Kiffin with the popcorn comment. Well, sometimes coaches make comments they might not should make, and I'm afraid that Jimbo might be in a situation. I worried when he said something at the start of the year. I remember it was SEC media days or when, saying, well, this may be our year. I think this is our best team we've had. And I'm paraphrasing, but we've got the team that might could beat Alabama this time. Right now, we'd bet on them not to beat anybody that they've got left playing in the SEC. We had Arkansas and Mississippi State as the bottom two teams in the Western Division. They're the only two SEC teams that Texas A&M's played, and they got beat by both of them. And so they still got to play Alabama, Auburn, LSU, and Mississippi. And right now, I would pick A&M to lose all of those. I don't know who they play in the other division now. They might play somebody in the other division that I would think they would beat. But right now, I'm afraid I don't. And putting a finger on it exactly, I'm not sure. I think, quarterback is. We always say when we're making our picks that your upper class leadership, particularly your quarterback and your schedule, who you play, basically determines how you come out. And A&M already did not have a big name returning quarterback, and their starting quarterback gets hurt. So that loses that. And then who do they play? Well, they play the toughest schools in the country. And so that's not making an excuse, but I'm afraid if this turns out the way I think it's going to, that Jimbo's going to wish deep down inside that he probably had not said the things he said to challenge Alabama, because I really can't see a scenario where Texas A&M wins that ball game.
Thanks again for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. More with Lyn Scarbrough from Lindy Sports in just a second. Need to remind you guys about our friends over at Rock Auto. With the ever-increasing number of makes and models, it is now impossible for your local chain auto parts store to stock all the parts that you need. Save time and save money when you use Rock Auto. You can sometimes save 30, 50, even 100% over at Rock Auto. They are a family business serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years. Their prices always reliably low for every customer. They got everything you need for your car, from windshield wiper blades to brake parts, tail lamps, motor oil, even new carpet. They've got it all for you. Go explore their easy-to-use website today. Find all the solutions to your auto parts needs. It is so easy to do. You just go in, you type in your make, your model, your year, boom, shows you all the things that you need for your vehicle. Go to rockauto.com right now. See all the parts available for your car or truck, and make sure you're right locked on in their How Did You Hear About Us box, so that they know that we sent you. It's an amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. Visit rockauto.com. Also, that time of year where you should be betting on games. We are in the midst of an SEC football season that is just so up and down. And sometimes you're looking at a game going, I know who's going to win this game. Why not place a wager? Go over to our friends at BetOnline.ag. They're back and better than ever. As always, BetOnline is your number one spot for all things pro and college football action this season. They got a new updated website and interface, even more props and odds and contests. And BetOnline continues to be your number one source for everything football. Go to their website right now. You can even do so on your mobile device. Sign up today. Receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use the promo code LOCKEDON to receive your bonus. And from football to basketball to baseball playoffs, BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way for you to bet on all your favorite sports. Head on over there right now, betonline.ag, where the game starts. Going along here, Locked On SEC, and we are continuing our conversation with our buddy Lyn Scarbrough of Lindy Sports, as we do every week right about this time. And Lyn, just going to get your thoughts on some of the games this week. Let's start. Do you have a thought on the Arkansas at Ole Miss game?
Which coach can get their team up the best from an emotional high of games that they lost? The loser of this game can really only be a spoiler, because then they'd have two losses. I take Ole Miss. They're at home. The strength of their offense. But again, it wouldn't shock me if Arkansas won the ball game. But I think because of the home field advantage, I'm going to go with Ole Miss.
What about Georgia going to Auburn? That one should be a fun one.
You got to go with Georgia because of the defense. Auburn probably is the best chance Georgia's got to lose. If you look at Kentucky and Florida so far, Georgia does not play Mississippi. They don't play Alabama. Auburn's got a history of knocking off number one, number two teams. But I've got to go with Georgia's defense. They're the best defense I've seen in a long, long time. A little sidelight, they've got two consecutive shutouts, total of 99-0. The last time they had two consecutive shutouts, 1980, the year that they won the national championship. Don't know if that's prophetic, but it's an interesting little sidelight.
What about, we kind of already talked about it, but expectation for Alabama at Texas A&M?
I think Alabama can name the score. A&M's already 0-2 with losses to Mississippi State and Arkansas. They still got to play Alabama, Ole Miss, Auburn, LSU. Like we said at the start of the show, I suspect Jimbo may regret that prophecy. I can't see Alabama being really. I expect Alabama to win by a comfortable margin.
All right, talking with my buddy Lyn Scarbrough of Lindy Sports. Lyn, I've been talking to a lot of folks who believe this could be one of those years that the SEC gets two teams into the playoff. A lot of people think Alabama and Georgia make the most sense. Seems like they could both run the table, meet in the SEC title game, play a close game, and both teams get in. But I'm having a hard time figuring out who the other teams will be. Ohio State, they already have a loss. Clemson already has a couple losses. Oklahoma is a team that has played with fire. They haven't lost a game yet, came close, but they get their big rival against Texas this weekend. Of course, both of those teams are future SEC teams. But if Texas wins this game, could you see them maybe running the table, and maybe Steve Sarkisian in year one gets his team to the playoff?
Well, you'd have to have a whole lot of things go the right way. When you've gotten beat 40-17 by Arkansas, who just got beat 37-0 by Georgia, you're going to have to go some to get yourself back up to national championship talk. But the last couple of weeks, last 2 or 3 weeks, they've been a offensive juggernaut. I mean, they've turned it around since that Arkansas game, and their offensive play, the quarterback play, is a lot better. And I think they got a shot against Oklahoma. I probably would pick Oklahoma to win it, but Oklahoma's certainly been up and down. I mean, they've looked real good a couple of games. They almost got beat by Tulane, who got beat by UAB, who got beat badly by Liberty. So, but most every team this year, guys, you can do one of those comparative score things that makes the team look bad. And that there was one involving Oklahoma, and there's been one involving Texas. But I like Oklahoma to win the game, but I think Texas could win. Oklahoma is going to stay in the national championship picture if they win. If they lose to Texas, I'm not sure if either one of them do, to be honest with you. It's kind of a strange year because Oregon was the guy that was supposed to do it out on the West Coast, and they've already got beat by Stanford. And Clemson was supposed to be the team that would do it from the Atlantic coast, and they've already lost 2 games and could have lost 3. So they're not in the power. I don't see an ACC team. An ACCC team. I don't see one from that conference being a legit contender for the national championship. And right now, I don't see one in the Pac-12. Everybody's lost. I don't see one out there that looks like a contender. Washington State and Oregon State look as good as anybody out there. And in the Big 12, it will be Oklahoma. So then you fall back into the Big 10, where people are still saying Ohio State. But I think the guy that's got the head up is the winner of this week's Iowa-Penn State game. Now, that you talk about 2 good defensive on the field at the same time. That's 2 good defensive ball teams. Michigan still hadn't lost a game. Michigan State still hadn't lost a game. So you got an abundance of potentials in the Big 10, and you probably still got 5 or 6 teams in the SEC, because a one-loss SEC team is going to be viewed a lot higher than a one-loss team from the ACC or the Big 12, even the Pac-12. And then don't forget Cincinnati. Cincinnati has got maybe the most legitimate shot of anybody since this 14 playoff thing came in to break through and to make it. I don't foresee Cincinnati losing a ball game, which means they would be 12-0. They win the conference championship game. They'd be a 13-0 conference championship winner that won on the road at Indiana and on the road at Notre Dame. And that's a pretty good resume. And this could be the year that you have a legitimate conversation about a group of 5 team making it to the Final Four. But you got a lot of things that got to happen in the meantime. Because if Alabama and Georgia both go undefeated, then both of them could get in it. If there ends up being 2 undefeated teams, let's say it's Iowa and either Penn State or Michigan State playing for that championship, if you ended up with an undefeated winner of both of those conferences and a one-loss winner of both of those conferences, then you could end up with Cincinnati being left out in the cold. But this one, guys, has got the potential to have more fun at the end of the season and figuring it out than you have in most of them.
Lyn, we appreciate the time as always, man. Thanks for hopping on with us.
All right, and I wanted, Chris, I think you're going to go up there and beat Kentucky. So LSU fans, don't give up. I think you're going to go up there and win.
All right, thanks for the call, Lyn. There you go. You heard it right here. Lyn thinks Kentucky could be in trouble with LSU coming to town. We'll be out here in Lexington at the game this weekend. I'll talk more on that on tomorrow's show. But for now, that is going to do it for this edition of Locked On SEC. Thanks you guys for listening. And, of course, thank you for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Now go make your second listen. Go check out some of our great podcasts across the Locked On podcast network. John Neighbors does a great job with Locked On Razorbacks. John Miller does Locked On Mizzou. You can check all those shows out wherever you find your podcasts. I'm Chris Gordy. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow right here on Locked On SEC.